Welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about building a parallax animation inside of After Effects. And what we're going to do is we're going to animate a Photoshop file. So this is a two-part video. First, we're going to talk about building the Photoshop file. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to do the parallax animation in After Effects. So as with any project, you should always start with a general idea. So here is a rough sketch of what I'm trying to follow, and just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking at, I'm doing some sort of sun or moon in the background. I'm gonna have a temple on a mountain, another mountain closer, and then a person in the foreground. And the idea is I'm gonna drag the camera kind of from the temple back to show the person. So the reason why I show you this is I need you to understand how you need to set up your Photoshop file. So one of the big things in here is we have to set up our Photoshop file with specific distances. So we need to have a foreground, a background, a middle ground, and some different objects, because as we drag that camera across, the parallax view, things are going to change based on the camera's view. So in the very background, I have kind of the sky. Then we have the moon. Next, I have the mountains with kind of the temple. After that, I have another mountain range with probably a river, some trees, things like that. And finally, in my foreground, I have a person on a ridge. Now, I've taken these also inside of After Effects to give you an idea of what a parallax animation looks like. So I'm going to flip on over to After Effects. And you'll notice I've already loaded After Effects with all my pieces here. And on my timeline, I can show you, we're going to start from zooming in, and we're going to move back, and watch how the individual pieces kind of come together to form this animation. So some of the things I need you to notice, let me zoom out here, as we're coming, notice how the pieces need some overlap. So as you think about your Photoshop file, especially right here, notice how you're going to have to make sure that you're putting things, layering things on top of one another and leaving areas of overlap. So don't just cut them like I have here, because you're going to end up with weird spaces. Because as that camera draws over, things are going to maneuver, change, and overlap. So this is our basic idea. Let's go ahead and jump back to Photoshop and let's get started. So our final project is going to be an HD video. So that's 1920 by 1080. But since we are zooming in, I want to have more pixels. So we're going to work at double the size, which would be a 4K video. So to start our file, let's go File, New. And a couple different ways we can do it. I've already set it up here. We're going to do 3840 by 2160. at 72 pixels per inch. That is a 4K video size. RGB color, white background, color profile is sRGB. And let's go ahead and hit create. So this is my new file. I did do it using a video preset, so you notice there's already guides, but I'm gonna go ahead and just clear the guides. So view guides, clear guides. So we have a good blank canvas to start on. Now I've already been through the free stock photo sites. And if you notice in Bridge, here we go, sorry, Bridge, I've already selected 8 images to use. Now it's not gonna match my sketch exactly, but I'm gonna make it work. So I'm gonna build this file. I will talk as I go. I may speed the video up, we'll see how it goes. But let's go ahead and let's get started. First things first, we're gonna bring in my background. So for the background, I wanted this nice solar system. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this over into my file. And one of the first things I'm going to do, let me close Rough Sketch. We're not using that anymore. Don't save. One of the first things I'm going to do before I transform or change anything, I am going to convert this to a smart object. So convert to a smart object. The reason why I'm doing that, as I'm building my composite, I may decide to zoom things in, out, scale them, but if I take something, I scale it down, and then I scale it back up, I will lose quality. To avoid losing quality, I go ahead and after I bring things in, I make them into a smart object. So now I can Control T. I could scale this if I need to. I really don't, but I'm going to kind of move it around and find what kind of sky I really like. And I think I kind of like something like that. For me, it's a little noisy, so what I might do is I might make a new gradient in the background. And for my gradient, I might use a color, so I might go from I kind of want a purplish color, so I might select that purplish color, and on the bottom, I'm going to take it to a dark black. So let me get this color, and we're going to take it darker. Maybe something like that. Change the opacity to 100%. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. Click OK. Let me hide that. And let's go ahead and let's flip this, or I guess I can reverse the colors. So that's kind of my gradient for my sky. And now let's find a good, I'm just using the down arrow key to move once you start. Let's find one that looks good. Overlay I kind of like, soft light, hard light's a little too much. Vivid, linear, oh I do like linear. We might try using linear, but I might turn the opacity down on this one. So there we go, I have some good stars. Some linear light. So I have a good background now. I'm kind of happy with that. So now let's go ahead and let's pull on my next guy. So I'm gonna go to bridge. We're gonna bring on, have my moon in the background. So let's go ahead and bring on my moon. To get my moon here, I'm gonna use an elliptical marquee. And I'm gonna hold Alt to draw from the center. And then I'm gonna just move my selection into the right position. I can also use the arrow keys. There we go, that's basically it. And I'm gonna just Control C and then go over to my composite, Control V. Again, first thing, when I put it on there, let's go ahead and let's right click, convert to smart object. And let's go ahead and let's move them somewhere in the top right. If we want to start using a rule of thirds composition, why don't we go ahead and place some guides in here? So let's go View, Guides, New Guide Layout. And right here, we can tell it how many columns. So in this case, we want to do 3 columns, 0 gutter. And we also want to do 3 rows, 0 gutter, and go ahead and click OK. So now I have a rule of thirds lined up here, and I can start to place some of my objects using the rule of thirds. So we can put our moon somewhere around there. I may choose to move it later, but that's a good place. If the guides are distracting, you can always hide them. So you can go to View, Show, and you can always hide your guides. Now, my moon, the color definitely doesn't match what I'm looking for. So what I'm going to do above the moon is I'm going to go ahead and add an adjustment layer. And in this case, we can do hue saturation. I want to clip it because I only want to change the moon. And then we can kind of shift colors, see if we can find the color we're looking for. We can also take down some of that saturation. Maybe I want to go with a cooler moon. Even more saturation. There we go. So I'm going to find the color I want. There we go. I think I want something like that. A little bit warmer, maybe even a little bit darker, maybe a little bit lighter actually. We'll go a little bit lighter. So there's my moon right there. I'm very happy with him. If I wanted to, I could also give it a glow, but I'm going to leave it like that for right now. So I can start to name some of these layers. So that would be a moon. This would be the Milky Way. And let's keep rolling up. But before we go much further, something I haven't done that you should always do is you should save. So I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop. And I have a folder, so we're going to go ahead and call this Composite. And click OK. Always make sure you save. And we are going to have a large file. We have a lot of pixels. and we are doing a lot of different layers. So let's keep going now. As we're building up on our project here, we are going to bring in some sky in the background. And actually I wanted to put this behind the moon or in front of the moon because I want some cool clouds coming in. So let's get our sky here. And we are going to bring Control A, bring our sky over, drop it on here. And again, first thing I want to do, I want to convert to a smart object. Now on this sky, Control T, let's kind of shrink it down just a little bit. On this sky, I want to keep the clouds, but I want to get rid of the blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to go play with masking this selection. But I'm going to double click and work inside of the actual smart object. So notice it opened it up on its own layer. And now I can work on doing a selection. So I'm going to select color range. And I'm going to try to select a lot of the blues. So I'm going to click here, hold shift, and keep clicking, watching my preview over here. And I'm trying to make sure I get all of the white. I know I'm not going to get the moon. I will come back and get that. I think it looks pretty good. Maybe something like that. Let's click OK. And let's select inverse. Because I want to keep the inverse, the clouds there. And let's go ahead and let's make a mask. And now let's start playing with our mask a little bit. We need to get rid of this moon. So I can come in with a brush, and we can just use a regular brush on this one. Whoops, other way around. So let's flip. I want to paint with white, and I want to get rid of a lot of that. Now your mask doesn't have to be perfect, and you'll see why here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and let's take a look and see how it goes. So I'm going to save, Control S. Close my smart layer. Let's get rid of some of these. I don't need all these right now. Don't save. There we go. So you see we have our clouds, and I do like how they look, but we need to make some changes. So first, let's play with some of our blend options here. Color burn, darker color, none of those really work. Screen might work. That's actually kind of fun, but not really what I'm looking for. So in this case, it might be something like screen, and I turn the opacity down. I may get what I want with the clouds. It's one of those you got to play. You might want to use your mask a little bit more. I think there's a little too much color on the cloud, so what I might do too is go in here, and I might do a hue saturation, and I might push that color closer to something that fits what we're doing. Take out some of the saturation. Maybe something like that. Save it. Close it. Go back, look at it. And we can keep playing with it. So this is one of those. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, we're just kind of having some fun. I'm going to keep it like this right now. I think I kind of like the idea. I can always come back later and change it. So we do have our clouds. Let's go ahead and let's keep working. We are going to bring in some mountains now. And again, for the mountains, I'm just going to move this whole image over. There should be a theme. You guys should know what I'm doing next. I should be making a smart object. We can call the one before this clouds. We can call this mountains. There we go. On our mountains, before I even scale it, I'm going to work on getting rid of this white background out here. So in this case, I think one of the easier tools is some of the quick selection tools, and we can just make my brush a little bit bigger, roll along this background back here, and quick select almost all of that. Some areas where it failed me, I can grab my quick selection tool. I can subtract. I can make that brush a little bit smaller using the bracket key. And I can run along. And Doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be a jagged edge anyways, but let's go ahead and let's get them. I think I got some over here. Let's get that. The rest of this is looking very good. We'll get that up in there. And there we go. Again, we want to mask out the sky, so I'm going to select inverse again. And let's go ahead, boom. There we go. Let's save it. And let's close it. So now we have some mountains, and now we can work on scaling the mountains. Control and semicolon, you can bring back your guides, and let's kind of work with our guides. I'm holding Alt to scale from the middle. And let's get our mountains in here however we want them. I might make them a little bit bigger, something like that. And I think the moon's going to push up a little bit higher. And possibly be a little bit smaller. There we go. Happy with that. Now, some things you notice with the mountains do not match the colors of everything else. So now we would have to come in and start applying some more adjustment layers. So let's go to, in this case, levels would probably be my first one. I need to clip it. And then we need to definitely add some shadows. Yeah, I'm liking that a little bit better. Also, some things, the colors don't match, so I might jump into curves, and let's give myself some space here. In curves, we want to kind of push some colors, so I'm going to work in these midtones here to push in some colors. So let's go ahead and let's play with the red. In this case, I'm probably going to want to push up, add some red, and notice it's already kind of looking a lot better. For greens, I can either subtract or I can try to add some green. I do think I want to add some green, get back some of those trees. And finally for blue, I don't want to do too much, maybe even pull away a little bit of blue. Kind of hard to tell at the moment, not exactly sure what I want. I do also want to play in the shadows down here, so I will pick some of the darker tones here, and maybe they're too blue. I might pull them down just a little bit. There we go. I might also pull some of the shadows down here. There we go. I actually like that better. So I'm just kind of playing visually, trying to decide what I do and don't want. Do I want more red? Do I want less? I think I want something like that. To me, it's nice, it's balanced. I can turn them off. I can turn them back on. I think I like that. It looks nice, balanced. I'm very happy with that. So I'm going to save. And I am going to keep going. So next one after mountains, I was going to do something fun here. I was going to put a small temple on the mountain. So this temple here was one I wanted to get on there. It's going to look a little hokey, a little cheesy, but whatever. That's all kind of part of the fun here. So I'm going to make a quick selection around my temple. It doesn't exactly fit. I expect you guys to do better. But let's go into my mountains here, and let's try to get that temple placed. I'm going to try to put him right in here if I can. So I'm going to paste him. Again, I should probably smart object him. That way I can scale and move him. I'm going to make his verticals vertical. Let's kind of scale him down a little bit. And I really think I wanted to try to get him on that matching ridge line there. So let's scale him down a little bit more. I would expect my students to spend a lot of time, make him look really good. So we're going to work around him really quick. Some easy ways to kind of clean this up. We can try using a selection tool. Make it smaller, see what it selects. I might be doing a lot of fighting with him though. Yeah, I'm not going to like that. So easier ways to do this one for me. is probably just with the mask and with a brush. I would probably just roll around him and just cut him out real quick. All right, so now we need to work on blending some of these items. So here we go. I have a nice roof line cut out, and when I zoom out, it definitely doesn't fit. It definitely has some issues, but let's go ahead and let's first match the levels of the mountain. So let's clip him, and we are going to lighten him up. We are also going to add in some hue saturation because we're going to take away some of that color. Trying to get him to kind of match a little bit more of what's happening on the mountain. We could also make him a little bluer and everything. We're also going to work on cutting out some of these areas here to blend him better. So again, I'm still working on this mask, and I'm going to keep blending. All right, now that this is blended, let's do a little curves here. And for our curves, we're going to kind of just try to blue up some of those shadows. So the blue, and I'm going to kind of just go in and just kind of work in the shadows. Whoops, I need to clip it. And let's see if we can just kind of match some of that tone happening in this picture. So let's zoom out. Not bad, not perfect. I would keep bumping him a little bit. He's still a little too red, a little bit more green. And I would have to keep playing with him. It's never going to be perfect. It's one of those. We're just trying to have some fun with him. With the curves, maybe, let's see. We could always experiment with the reds. Pull the reds down. Getting a little bit better. The other thing I would consider doing is possibly blur him a little bit. So I'd place a Gaussian blur on him and pull it way down and see where it kind of matches. 0.1 looks pretty good. So he's not perfect, but it's kind of fun. Remember, this is kind of a fantasy thing. Again, for my students, I'd expect more. I'd want you to keep pushing, make it look even better. I'd probably cut that out and everything, but for now, I'm happy with it. I'm going to go ahead and save. And let's come back and let's look at our picture there. So I got our little Shangri-La happening. So now let's build up the rest of this image. Not too much more to go. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a forest on the bottom. So I'm going to hide some of these clouds, some of these items here. We're going to go ahead and just put a forest. And for the forest, it's pretty easy. Again, we could probably just use a quick select tool. Come along that bottom here, get that right there. There we go. And whoops, you know what? Let's move it all in. Let's make one smart object. That way I have options later. So again, we're going to convert to smart object. Call it forest. And double click it. And inside of here, I will do that quick selection again. Only takes a couple of seconds. There we go. Whoops, I wanted to add that little part right there. Let's go ahead and let's do our mask. Save, close, and in here we'll go ahead. We'll scale him slightly. He really doesn't need to be scaled that much. We're going to pull him up. And again, we have to kind of blend this one to work. So again, I'm going to put a mask on there and I'm going to get my brush tool again. And in case you haven't noticed, I am using a brush. I am using one of these down here. I'm not exactly sure which one it is. The Ultimate Pencil Hard. Some of these will work. You just got to kind of play with it. The Ultimate Pastel might work in this case. So let's kind of bring it up. And what I normally do with these brushes is I will turn down their opacity, turn down their flow a little, and then I'll work the mask and I'll click and I'll kind of go over it. And the idea is I'm trying to get kind of a rougher natural edge on these. And I know it's not going to be perfect. In fact, This right here is going to be hidden, so I don't need to spend a ton of time here. But I'm going to kind of rework areas of the mountain. So I know that I have that coming down. There's a dark shadow here, so I'm going to take out some of the trees in this dark shadow. So what I do is I just keep kind of rolling over the trees multiple times. The brush kind of changes every time, and that gives it kind of a little bit more of a realistic effect here, because rarely is the horizon in the mountains these just beautiful, perfect straight lines. So we're going to kind of go over it. The other thing we can do with the trees to make them look better is we can match some of these colors together. So again, on my trees, I could do another hue saturation. Whoops, black and white cookie, hue saturation. Again, I can clip it, pull down some of that saturation, roll that hue more towards the blues. Not going to be exact, but be kind of close. I could also go on my mountains here, and I could overlay some hue saturation, and I could even tell it to colorize and try to match some of that color. That's pretty close. And again, I could mask that. And then I could come and brush on the mask. Big brush, soft brush. Paint with a little bit of white, and I could bring back in a little bit of color, like the trees are slowly creeping up the mountain a little bit. So just subtle things you can do to help sell this. Again, it's not perfect. Not really going for perfection. This is meant to be kind of a fun project. So last but not least, let's go ahead and let's bring in some clouds. So I'm going to use these clouds to help hide some of my really bad photoshopping. So I can bring this cloud, put it above. We'll call this right cloud. And I'm going to move him over here. Again, I want to smart object. I'm also going to duplicate. I'm going to put another one over here. I'm going to flip horizontal. And I'll scale him down. Doesn't need to be near as big. Put him down here somewhere. Now, I've kind of hidden my bad Photoshop. Everything looks good and hidden. The beauty is, you know, kind of using objects to help hide when I want to be lazy. Last but not least, let's get our hiker on here. And here is our hiker. Now, I want my hiker on the other side, so I'm going to just go, I'm going to select all, edit, transform, and I'm going to flip him horizontal before I even get there. And let's go ahead and move him up, put him in here. Again, we want to smart object. We will call this our hiker. And I can scale down. Don't quite want them that big, probably about that big. And again, let's go on into that smart object and let's select our hiker. View, the guides are killing me here, clear those guides. So let's try select subject. Let's see what subject gets us. Subject gets us most of the hiker, actually. It does a pretty good job there, a little messed up on the bottle. So different ways you can fix it. I'm a huge fan of the polygonal lasso, and I might just fix it up a tiny bit here and there. So I hold shift to add. We want to get some of this rock down here. And get a little bit of his backpack. This one I could definitely use a selection tool to do, but sometimes it's just as quick and easy to go around. And last but not least, I do like the pole. I would like to keep part of the pole, so we're going to get this pole real quick. The pole is a straight object, pretty easy to run down and get it. I'm hitting spacebar as I select to help draw this. Get the quick clips. And we are almost there. All right, let's go ahead and let's show our hiker. He looks beautiful. Let's save he or she, but I'm assuming he. All right, there we go. So now we can hide our guides. This right here is pretty much my final version of the file. So I have our Shangri-La that we're headed to. It looks pretty bad. I would really want to redo that, but I'm just going to let it be. We have our hiker up front. To sell up the hiker a little bit, I would probably add some levels to them, and I would probably actually make them darker in the foreground. You could play with some lighting, some colors, things like that. Now, let's go ahead and let's save. Got it. Don't save, X. So this to me is a final Photoshop composite, ready to go. Still need some work. I'm not 100% happy with it, but for the sake of this video, we are going to roll on.